We have to make sure that we stop them from cheating, because they cheat like dogs. We're in a race with some very sick people. They're liars.
Donald Trump has spent months making all kinds of baseless claims about this election.
She said, keep those borders open, let everybody come in. You're either stupid, you hate our country, or they're trying to get them to vote, right?
And like in past years, he's refused to be clear on whether he'll accept the results. Trump and his allies say they're trying to protect the vote, but analysts say Trump is creating mistrust so he can challenge the results if he loses, the same thing that happened in 2020. But this time around, that effort is shaping up to be more sophisticated.
There's no question over the last 4 years that anti-democratic forces have been working to organize all over the country. Those individuals will likely be activated in the aftermath of a Trump loss to try to interfere with the process in counties all over the country.
I'll explain what's different now, but first, let's go back to 2020.
I'm very worried about mail-in voting because I think it's subject to tremendous fraud and being rigged.
Trump spent months sowing doubt leading up to that vote, too. Then, on election night, even though a clear result was still days away, Trump declared victory.
Frankly, we did win this election.
All that denial culminating in the January 6th attack by Trump supporters on the U.S. Capitol.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
Trump's own officials said there was no widespread fraud. Some even described 2020 as the most secure election in U.S. history.
We know who wins our elections, even when the margins are very, very close. And yet we have candidates, particularly losing candidates, who spread lies.
4 years later, one poll suggests a majority of Republicans believe 2020 was stolen. Another says fewer than half think 2024 will be fair and accurate.
Because they've already started cheating in Lancaster. They've cheated.
That certainly makes things challenging, and it makes people willing to believe rumors and conspiracy theories.
And compared to 2020, there's a lot more groundwork in place to dispute the results, starting with dozens of election deniers who now have power over parts of the electoral process.
We have a very decentralized election system. There are a lot of places that various actors could try to change the outcome for partisan purposes.
One of those places, county and state election boards. Investigations from the New York Times and Rolling Stone found election deniers serving as election officials in the key swing states that will decide the election. A lot of attention is on Georgia, where a majority of the members of the state election board have questioned 2020. Election boards are important. They're responsible for certifying the results of a county or a state. The fear, analysts say, is that election deniers serving on them could try to subvert a win for Kamala Harris or at least delay certification.
There's trouble in counties that will delay everything, it'll cause confusion, etc.
Election deniers have also been leading efforts to recruit poll watchers.
We got to make sure there's no cheating, and we're working hard on that.
This pro-Trump organization claims to have recruited tens of thousands of so-called election integrity patriots to be at the polls. Poll watchers are volunteers who monitor parts of the election process. They can be nonpartisan or members of political parties, and both parties use them. Again, Trump-supporting groups say this is about the integrity of the vote, but concerns have been raised that 2020 skeptics watching the polls could end up interfering with the process or intimidating some voters to stay away.
You're going to have state police stationed at polling places. You're going to have plexiglass gun-proof walls.
The impact is on the millions of election workers in this country who are working hard to make sure that every American's voice is heard.
Then there's the lawsuits.
We got more lawyers, we got more people watching. And I told them, if we win and when we win, we're going to prosecute people that cheat on this election.
In 2020, Trump and his allies filed a flurry of lawsuits challenging results across the country. All of them failed. That chaotic effort led by Rudy Giuliani.
We will be bringing an action challenging that
Top Republican Party lawyers refused to help Trump in 2020, but things are different now. The Republican National Committee's election litigation team is led by a 2020 denier who was actually indicted for efforts to overturn the vote. There have already been dozens of lawsuits filed by both parties over different aspects of the 2024 election, but the majority of them have reportedly come from Republicans. The RNC says it has a proactive litigation strategy.
You can imagine efforts, running all the way from the lowest levels of the system up to the final stage of the process, which takes place in Congress on January 6th.
And the closeness of this race increases the likelihood of a fraught post-election period.
Most people in the United States will be voting on multiple page ballots with literally dozens of races on them. So it's not just the presidency that they have to count. That's going to take some time.
Like in 2020, it could take days for a winner to be called, leaving time for doubt and misinformation to spread, just as it did then.
People can always think, oh, this went wrong, or this went wrong, or they did something funny over here.
Even worse, perhaps, for people to descend upon the vote counting centers and try to stop the vote because they think something nefarious is going on.
Despite all those challenges, every expert we spoke to said they're confident American institutions will hold, with more guardrails in place now than in 2020. Those include the Electoral Count Reform Act, designed to make it more difficult for trouble at the state or local level to derail the whole certification process in Congress.
I'm sure there will be many, many attempts at this, but the system is ready for them.
Still, they say this baseless, widespread election denial will have deep and lasting harmful impacts on the country.
There are people who believe the exact opposite of reality, and we're going to have to work hard over the course of the next several years to bring all of our citizens back to a common reality.